We go. Welcome back again to another episode of Evil Live. I'm your host, the Evil Tyrone. Special guest tonight, we've got Jordan Van Ryn, the Renaissance geek and the multimedia artist and horror fan. She's just an overall just connoisseur of everything cool and just out of this world. Welcome to the show, Jordan Van Ryn.
Thank you so much for having me here. I'm really glad to be here. And I recently been in like a couple live streams before, but the truth is, I really love horror and geeky stuff or
Yes.
anime, and sometimes I love Harry Potter, Star Wars, Lord of the Rings. I love art, I love cinema, I love music and food. I love basically anything in particular, and I consider myself a connoisseur for life.
Yes, I love that. I love that. A connoisseur for life. And I'm loving your shirt, the Salem shirt. I've gotta make it out there. I've gotta make it out there.
Yeah, what this is, it's actually a Salem Apothecary t-shirt. I got this the second time I went to Salem, and it was on Halloween. And it was after I went to Boston to film a documentary about LeakyCon, which is a Harry Potter related convention. And we decided to like go to Salem again, and I filmed lots of footage and I spliced it into a little music video, and I set it to me singing Seven Wonders by Fleetwood Mac. And I got to meet Bora, the witch Bora, and she's
Wow.
amazing. Okay.
How lucky are you? How lucky are you? You've got she's and this lady is so multi-talented. She's got her own YouTube channel, which the link is in the description as well. If you want to check that out, and make sure you also check her out on Instagram. One of the things that caught, my eye was your Kitchen Witch, series, which I'm excited that you told me, you're going to be bringing back. So can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, the thing about Kitchen Witch is that this all started during 2020, during the COVID epidemic, when the whole world shut down. And the reason why I came up with this idea of Kitchen Witch was that I always was fascinated with knowing anything about witches and Harry
Yes.
Potter in particular. And my dad, I learned to cook different dishes with my dad because my dad happens to be a chef. And last year, before 2020 happened, he gave me a little Hanukkah present called the Wizard's Cookbook. And as I was looking through it, when COVID happened, I needed to start a little something that could help me pass by the time, so I wouldn't go crazy from going insane by keeping
Yeah.
myself locked in. And
Yeah.
then finally, I decided, oh, wait a minute, I can make a little cooking show that features a Harry Potter esque witch who makes all kinds of foods, not just regular everyday food, but food that you could cook on the holidays, food from all different cuisines all over the world, food that would exist in the worlds and the worlds of your favorite literature and favorite fictions, or
Yes.
any types of food possible. And then I came up with that show. And a lot of people really liked this show that I felt so confident, and I started to learn everything to know about cooking. And what I learned it from is I learned it from anime shows like Food Wars, and I even learned from cooking YouTubers such as Joshua Weissman, for example. And one time I actually learned how to do the Bavarian pretzels, and they came out so delicious that I posted it to my Instagram. And so
Yeah.
when I posted my first episode on season 1 of Kitchen Witch, it was chicken tikka meat pies, and it was a combination of chicken tikka masala mixed with
Mm.
traditional English meat pies. And I thought, I'm going to marry the cultures together. I become almost like a food matchmaker, just a little bit. And so when I came up with this, I would come up with my apron that reads Kitchen Witch, and my opening would always come up with this boiling cauldron, and I wave my wand for a pop of smoke, and the sign comes out, and then I would just like tell everyone, welcome to Kitchen Witch, the show where any kind of magic can happen right here in the kitchen. Today we're gonna make this recipe. Let's get started. And I really keep things as organized, easy to do as possible. I don't make things overly complicated in my show, and in a way it's almost kind of like I'm a little like Julia Child mixed with Bob Ross with a touch of Harry Potter in there.
I I love that. You had me sold at Julia Childs, but when you added Bob Ross in there, and then you're gonna
Yeah,
add uh what was the last one? What was the last one?
Harry Potter.
Harry Potter. Yes, yes. Now who would you be? Harry Potter or another character in that realm? Like would you?
Oh, actually, funny you should mention. I would rather be like a Hermione Granger-esque character, but really what I wanted to be is Luna Lovegood. Luna Lovegood is literally the reason why I'm a Ravenclaw, because like there was barely any representation of the Ravenclaw house until Luna Lovegood came around, and I was like, damn it, I must be Ravenclaw. Because when I was a kid, when I went to the Zubu, they would always try to sort me in the hat, and they say, you're a Gryffindor, but I didn't feel like it. My dad was more of a Gryffindor, and my mom was more of a Ravenclaw. And so when I saw Luna, and the fact that I have such a thirst for knowledge and curiosity and creativity, and I paint, I draw pictures and all that kind of stuff, I felt more comfortable in the Ravenclaw house, that
Yes.
I felt more like I would exist in that realm. And when I first started my channel, no joke, I originally made a whole bunch of Harry Potter related videos set to songs from like movies from The Prince of Egypt or The Hunchback of Notre Dame, or just songs by Katy Perry or anything in particular. And I did the editing so well. That was when I first really discovered how to do movie editing, and I would
Mm-hmm.
post it to YouTube. But what was kind of crazy about it is that at the time I used to do Disney commentaries, but they're not here anymore because my dad also happened to be a lawyer, and we went to copyright wars with Disney and Warner Brothers, and we beat them both.
Wow. Just amazing. I love hearing stories like that, where the little guy takes on, the big corporation, and especially when it comes to the copyrights, because so many people have gotten taken under, over something that's ridiculous. So,
Yeah, and exactly. And the irony about that is that a lot of big corporations like Disney and Warner Brothers, they take down so many fan related projects that are created by fans. They don't realize is that they're creating their own brand and fan experience to help enhance your brand, to help people become more curious about the product you're producing. So fans are necessary to your product. And when I did a lot of Harry Potter related videos, I did a little series of videos called Things Ravenclaws Say, and it was basically me in my Ravenclaw school outfit. And my character's name, I had an OC at the time, and my character's name was Mary Helsing. She's kind of like the Hermione of the Ravenclaw house. And I put together scenes of her, of what a Ravenclaw could possibly say. And it
yeah.
got over 1,000 views. And then like later I did like a little video for to honor Alan Rickman's passing called Things Professor Snape Says. And I
Yes.
actually got an actor to play Snape, and he was so good. And like it's also there on my YouTube as well, and I just kind of like felt like, oh my god, I nailed it. And then I like started to branch out and start putting like ideas of creating new original content. Now, originally, when the YouTuber craze was like going on about, like with all the things like Logan Paul or Tana Mongeau or Shane Dawson, all those crappy YouTubers who I don't even care about. I tried to be like them with all the tag questions, and they said, here's all the tag questions. I'm an influencer too. But then after that, I just kind of felt like I'm not an influencer. I'm a content creator. So I just unfollowed a lot of those influencers and I tried to find like YouTubers or really content creators that are genuinely creative and
Yes.
talented or music oriented, art oriented, cooking oriented, or fandom related. Like Coley Does Things, for example. Coley Does Things is such a funny channel to me because she talks about everything about fandom and I like her for that. And then once I started to branch out, I started discovering different horror movie YouTubers like the Night Watch Zone and Craven Something Scary, Possessed by Horror,
Yeah.
and your channel, for example, and recently Terrence, because I was on another like live stream by Terrence and we were talking
Yes.
about
Terrence is
vampires.
awesome.
Yes. Oh my God. We were having a live stream and we talked everything about vampires and we laughed our asses off and it was great. And I'm normally a vampire fanatic. I'm love vampires. They're my second favorite thing next to witches. And lo and behold, for Halloween, I'm going to be Eddie Munson as a vampire. And my vampire fangs are going to be coming this Friday. But it's not just one, but two fangs in a coffin.
Yes, yes, and I love that you're going to be Eddie Munson. He was definitely a highlight of the season, you know,
Yes.
and
Oh,
vampire
man.
him. It's going to be amazing. It's going to
I
be
just
amazing.
hope it happens, knock on wood, because when I saw Eddie Munson, the crazy part about it is that he literally had exactly my enthusiasm. I had exactly his eyes and his hair.
Yeah,
And I also had his wildness because I was exactly like that at school, but I never really had any friends at the time. It was only until like when I started at the end of college and when I started meeting other people who were into geek related content, I
hmm.
became a lot more like open, very much like how Eddie is, you know?
Oh yeah, I think we all evolve at different points in our lives. In high school, I was very uh quote unquote shy and meek and really didn't say anything to anybody, kept to myself. I find myself socializing a lot more as an adult, than I did as a kid, which is nice to be able to meet all these people and to interact with all these people who share the same like love and passions, for the things that I do, which is great. We got a few comments. We got Soothing Smooth. She says, "Hey there,"
Yeah.
you know,
Hello.
the food matchmaker,
Yeah.
an amazing story, and hello Jupiter,
Hi,
Jupiter in the
Jupiter.
building. Thank you guys for joining the live. But I guess we can get into your horror origin story. Like how did you get into to horror?
Well, a funny story. Let me tell you a story. It
Oh
was
yeah.
a dark and stormy night. Wink, wink. So it was a dark and stormy night. It was on Halloween night, and I was 11 years old. And my dad exposed me to Stanley Kubrick's The Shining.
Ooh.
And when I was 11, that was my first exposure to horror. Because before that, my parents used to call it scary movies. Mostly what you would watch like on sleepovers. And the
Yeah.
two other scary movies I watched were The Mummy with Brendan Fraser and The Ring with Naomi Watts, her name was?
Yeah.
Yes.
No.
So like I watched those and they told me that they were scary movies, but I didn't realize that I was being exposed to what horror movies were until my true introduction to the genre was actually The Shining by Stanley Kubrick. And what I remembered was is that on Halloween night we were at like my uncle Mark's for a while before we moved into our apartment, and we decorated the whole house with Halloween decorations. I was in like my costume. I didn't remember. We had like food and snacks and everything. And so when my dad turned on the movie, I was hooked.
Yeah.
I was like hooked from the moment I saw the first scene with the flying over the hills and the scary music. I remembered I felt scared, but I never like screamed. I was almost kind of like I was hypnotized into its camera work, its
Wow.
music, its storytelling, its acting by Jack Nicholson and Shelley Duvall and Danny Lloyd and Scatman Crothers, all these people who knew how to make horror genuinely like a cinematic experience. And that was my first introduction. And so as I got older, when I was a teenager, when I was 15 years old, around the time when I found my channel, like in 2006, I became a goth for a while because I was bullied for a while, and I needed to like put on a goth facade as my way to shield myself from bullies. And I tried to pretend that like, oh, I'm just into like scary goth metal. I'm into like all those types of things. But actually, I was really just into like new types of metal, and I was just like watching horror movies, and I still like Disney. If you remember that scene from like the Lego movie where that character like Evan, I forget his name, like Elliot was like saying like Emmett, his name Emmett, and he's like saying like I can be dark and edgy too, and Joe looks out the window, he goes, guys, look, a rainbow. That was so that was actually me when I was a goth, but then I grew out of it at 17, and I got introduced into all different types of fandoms and geek culture. And then I found myself getting back into the horror movie fandom. And I looked back on it and I felt, wait a minute, I never actually was a goth. I was a horror movie fan in the making. And every time I discover new horror movies, I always try to find supernatural, psychological, foreign horror films. Sometimes gory. I will still watch some disturbing, gory stuff, or laughably bad horror movies are acceptable too.
Yes.
And I just wanted to like soak in everything I know about horror, and that was when I just kind of felt like I needed to meet some friends who were into that kind of stuff. And the one movie that really decided to make me want to like be a part of the horror community was The Witch, and also the Rocky Horror Picture Show.
Oh, that's and I love that you mentioned the Rocky Horror Picture Show because I was one of those people who slept on it like super hard. Like I literally saw it for the first time on Sunday. Like that
Oh
was my
my god.
first time seeing it. My fiance, Jaleesa Taylor, she introduced me to it, and well, she was watching on the TV, and I was like, all right, let me go check this out or whatever. And just the introduction, because I love musicals, you know, I love
Me
music,
too.
and just and then the horror aspect of it, I'm just like, yo, it's something that I never seen before. And then Tim Curry, like, just giving that phenomenal performance.
I know. I actually went to see the Rocky Horror Picture Show when I was 16 years old. That was my first exposure to the show, and it was in a big theater with so many people doing the audience participation and the callbacks. And
Uh-huh.
that was really my first introduction to the horror movie fandom because it felt so fun. It felt like there were no like useless internet debates about which ship or character is your favorite, and it didn't matter. It was all about this movie is the greatest. Let's try and make as many callbacks as possible and laugh about it and dance and sing about it. It was like I found that community.
Yeah, it's an amazing thing, especially when you can find a community that's, because on the internet, you got a lot of bickering and stuff. But if you can find a community that is very passionate and everybody's like cool, like from what I've seen with the horror community so far, like everybody has been like really chill and very accepting. Like, you know, everybody is it's been peaceful. Like I haven't gotten to a back and forth with anybody. Like I just love the horror community, and everybody's doing things interesting, you know, and they love different things, and you know everybody's respectful of everybody. I'm also interested in your you mentioned a lot of subgenres. Like, so do you have a favorite subgenre in the horror medium?
Well, I think my favorite subdramas, I actually have a couple favorites. I
Okay.
love vampire horror movies. I love
Yes.
witch horror movies, psychological horror movies,
Yes.
anything that is foreign. I'm
Yes.
up for that. And those are practically it.
So
Oh
what's
wait, I forgot. Cult horror fans.
yes, yes. Now what's your favorite vampire, like some of your favorite vampire horror movies out there?
I'm gonna say it. It's Bram Stoker's Dracula by Francis Ford Coppola. Actually, Coppola's Dracula, Interview with the Vampire. I also like Vampire Hunter D Bloodlust. I love the German musical Danz der Vampir. Uh, I just love anything like that has a vampire in it. But these four are kind of my favorites.
God, awesome, awesome. Now my fiance, she loves psychological thrillers, so I'm interested to know like what are some of your favorite psychological thrillers, because it's a lot of them out there, and it's a they sometimes they take your mind in so many different directions. Like it's hard for me to catch up sometimes or keep up, you know. So I have to like a lot of them I have to rewatch, you know, to catch everything, or have
Uh,
somebody or watch it with someone, you know, like my girl who can just who pretty much catches everything, you know. So
Oh man, I actually love psychological thrillers, but I actually have a couple favorites. My favorites are The Shining, of course. I
yes,
also like The Witch because even though it's technically a witch movie, it's a bit psychological when you actually think
yes it
about it.
is, yes it is.
I love The Lighthouse. I love Black Swan by Darren Aronofsky. It's such a beautifully done psychological horror film. I
Yes,
also really like Hereditary's great. I also like Death Note. Death Note, in a way, even though it's an anime, it's technically psychological horror because it consists about a student who has this notebook which has the power to kill someone if you write their name in it,
yes,
and it's so psychologically dark that I love it. And sometimes and also I'm gonna say it, I love Misery, Mother, and American Psycho, and of course Us. I mean, I just love anything that is just psychological horror, that when I come across it, it's almost kind of like, for me, the psychological horror subgenre is my favorite because you get to see the darkness of the human psyche.
yes you do, yes you do.
Yeah, and when I see the darkness of human psyche, that's when I just get really fascinated because I like to see how twisted people can be. Even the movie Scream was surprisingly psychological when you actually think about it. Because a lot of people confuse this movie as a slasher, but it's many things because it can be a commentary on how our obsession with the horror genre, mostly the slasher genre, has become so normalized that we feel like we normalized violence. And that ironically, we get to meet two characters that are completely psychotic, that they use horror movies to justify their killing.
Yes, yes. I love your take on that. I love your take on that because I never thought about it that way.
Hmm.
We got a Sue the Spoof said Death Note, loves Death Note. Jupiter, she says love Hereditary. You know, Mika
Hmm.
just joined us. Mika's in the building. What's
Hi,
up,
Mika.
Mika?
Hello.
Yes. Jupiter says interesting perspective on Scream. You know,
Thanks.
so we're rocking. We're rocking. I Cuz I never like I've seen Scream so many times, and you know there's always like there's that commentary on, like the horror films and the satire and stuff like that. But I never really thought about it like on a psychological level, but it does make sense. It definitely does make sense. I think now it's even glaring. It's more glaring now because I feel like back then, well now it's less that, like
Hmm.
with the latest screams.
Oh yeah, and definitely that. And recently we've been getting a lot of horror movies that deal a lot more psychologically, but also not just psychologically, but more sympathetically, because we're starting to lean more towards the Carrie phase. Because Carrie is a beautifully done film, and I was afraid to watch that movie because I was afraid to kind of like relive the many times that I got bullied. But then when I watched it, it was almost kind of like, oh my God, it's literally a commentary on how this poor girl who happens to have psychic powers gets bullied to the point where she kind of feels like she had enough. And
Yeah.
also, I even did like this amazing painting of Carrie with her after the blood's been poured on her. And I used the blood to write out the many things she's been told throughout her life, kind of like words can hurt sometimes. And I
Yeah.
have that picture on my Instagram, and I did made as much as I can to make the blood readable, and I made the face so good that it looks closer to Carrie. And the
Wow.
thing about Carrie is that, oh, sorry. And the thing about Carrie is that she she genuinely is a good person. She was just pushed too far because of how society is so unaccepting of people who are different. And recently we came out with this movie called Pearl, the prequel to the
Yes.
movie X. And this movie blew me away
Oh,
because I've never seen Mia Goth have acting that is so close to Oscar worthy, that is so close to Oscar worthy acting. But the Academy's not going to recognize horror because it's considered lowbrow, but they don't realize that horror itself can be an art itself and it should be included. Because the thing what was so beautifully done about Pearl is that I watched X the other day, and I felt so unsettled about Pearl's character when we first meet her. But my dad said the most profound thing ever. He said that she looked kind of lonely and not
mm,
really like actually evil. She was
yeah.
just not right. She's not right in the head. Even her husband has to constantly see her as his responsibility, even though she kind of kills a lot of people, but she doesn't kill it out of spite. She kills them out of jealousy because, like, we see at the end of like her past, she wanted to be a star. She wanted to be like a movie star and get a role, but because she's afraid of staying on the farm and being treated only as a wife like figure, which she never wanted to be. But unfortunately, now that she's trapped, her dream never came true. And so when she sees a couple of young people doing a movie, she clearly sees herself in them, but she's driven by jealousy. And
Oh
it's
yeah.
and it's a truly sad story when you really think about it. And it's even more deeply psychological when you realize that both Pearl and Maxine are actually both played by Mia Goth.
I know. I was just like I'm excited. Like I've seen Pearl. I've gotta like I think it comes out on Blu-ray next month, so I'm definitely gonna purchase it. Because my fiance, she hasn't seen it yet, but I'm waiting for her to see it so we can have a discussion. We can dive into it because she's a big fan of X. So we're
Yeah.
gonna dive, and I'm just like I'm excited for Maxine. Maxine's gonna be it's gonna be it's gonna be great because Mia Goth, like what she did in Pearl, just her performance was top notch. You know, it was that monologue, that scene. I was just like, oh my god, like this is what this is what we need, you know. And I love when they do different things like that, especially like in a movie like Hereditary, when you know they went in deep and you know with the kitchen table scenes and
Oh my
you
god,
know,
that part was like emotionally draining, but no joke, when I saw Pearl's monologue, I was really crying. I actually cried during this whole monologue
yeah,
because it was like a part of me just wanted to divorce the facts that she killed people, but really she's just a person who just wanted to like get off this farm. And also I hated the mother in that movie. She was like straight up Margaret White from Carrie, and I was just almost like, hurry, Pearl, kill her. Yeah.
yeah they got it was very interesting, you know, especially you know with the decade that they were playing with, you know, which leads me to my next question. Do you have a favorite decade in horror?
Oh man, this is a hard one. This is such a hard one because it's like when I watch certain like films from like a decade, it's always very unique to me because like in the 1920s to the 30s, like whether it's the silent era and the silver era of horror films, I find those to be kind of like artistic. And then there's of course like the actually I'm not a fan of like the 40s and 50s. 50s horror movies are just kind of like blah to me. But if I were to pick a favorite, I really like I really like any of the stuff that was from the 80s
Yes.
and the 90s, the silent era and the silver era. They were great. And recently the horror movies of the current decade. I really think those are my personal favorites because they really have branched out in horror storytelling. And sometimes I love to just like watch any decade and I could like be like so wowed by what they do and how timely they can be. But if I'm gonna like pick a top 3 or 4 or 5, I don't know. So it's gonna be silent era, the silver era, 80s, 90s, and up to today.
I agree. I agree. I think we're in a great space for horror right now, you know, and especially
Yeah,
with what people are doing. Like I don't know if you saw the movie Men, you know,
I haven't yet, but I
yeah,
might want to see it.
yeah, you know, it's not the best horror movie ever, but it's definitely worth a watch, especially with what they do with the visuals and stuff like that. And the storytelling aspect. Like I really dug what they were doing. And just you know the different, I guess the different avenues. Like we're getting a lot of new voices out there. Like you said, you love us, you know, and you know just the different, even like the foreign films, you know, that are coming out. You know, like I don't know if you saw Incantation. I saw on
Oh,
Netflix.
oh,
Yeah,
I might want to get around to it. Which is it from like Asia or Europe or
it's from Asia. Asia.
okay?
Yeah.
Is it okay? Which one is it, Indonesia or
I think you know what? I'm not even gonna lie to you. It might be Taiwanese. I'm gonna go with Taiwanese. I think it's Taiwanese.
okay? Well,
But
mhm.
don't quote me on that. Don't quote me on that. But it's about a curse, and it was just like highly effective for me. You know, especially like watching it at midnight and seeing like you know images on the screen. You know, similar to the Exorcist movie, you know, and how that affected me, you know, when I
Wow.
first saw it, you know.
Hmm.
So it was wild. It was wild.
Hmm.
Um now my next question would be name a film that well name a horror film that you wish that you could have been on the set for.
My God, I'm just thinking.
Yeah, you can name a couple if you can't zero it down to one, you know.
Okay, I actually got a couple of horror sets that I would have loved to be on. I would have loved to be on the set of The Shining. I would have loved to be on the set for Interview with the Vampire. Like specifically the current one, not just the movie from the 94, but also the current one. It's just the set for the new Interview with the Vampire is just so breathtaking to watch, and I'm just almost kind of like, I wish I could live in that world because I'm a huge Anne Rice fan, and I just almost kind of feel like I love every second of it. So, like The Shining and Interview with the Vampire, and I swear, the sets for Coppola's Dracula, oh God, I
Yeah.
would walk through that place. Like, I would just be like, yes, Gothic. Gothic is my faves. Look at the castles, and I'm not gonna lie. The sets for Van Helsing were pretty damn amazing, especially the ballroom scene.
Oh yeah.
I That was gorgeous to me. Hands down, the most beautiful looking ballroom scene I've ever seen. And of course, I would love to be on the Adams Family set. The
Yes.
movie,
Yes, yes. I love those movies, you know. Was just watching
yeah,
what's the second one not too long ago
yes, the
with the Black
second one.
Widow. It's
Oh
amazing.
man. Yeah, and speaking of which, the show Wednesday Adams is gonna be coming this November.
I know. I'm excited. I'm
I
excited.
wanna I wanna rewatch the first two Adams Family movies again before I see the show. Especially the Adams Family Values. I think Adams Family Values is definitely Wednesday Adams' movie.
Yes, yes. It definitely is. It definitely is. She definitely did her thing.
Oh man.
It's just it's so much like history and so much lore in the Adams family that I'm just interested where they're going to take it as far as this new show. You
Yeah,
know.
exactly. And the thing about it is that like everybody tries to debate like which creepy family, like or just like monster related family was is better, like the Munsters or the or basically like the Addams family. I
Yes.
tried to look
Yes.
at both of them. The monsters are very campy and very kid friendly, but if I were to pick, I preferred the Adamses because when you really look at them, they're conventionally grotesque and everything, but yet if you look past them, they're such a close knit, perfectly happy family. And the first two movies really showed that so much that I really felt like I could totally relate to that family. If I were a member of the Adams family, I would definitely be like one of a witch like relative who is married to a vampire, and it would have been like so great.
Oh yeah, I think I could have played like an uncle or something like an uncle, not Fester, but just an uncle who the traveling one, who's haunting all these places, and I come
Hmm.
back and got gifts for the kids and stuff like that, you
Yeah,
know.
I think that would be great. And oh, speaking of which, Mika, she says love a gorgeous gothic setting. Interview with the Vampire and Crimson Peak are my faves. Crimson Peak is so underrated as a movie. Like, and I normally love Del Toro's films. I loved
Yeah.
him since I watched Pan's Labyrinth, every single one of his films. I mean, some of his films are okay, but I really like how he puts all of his himself into his work.
Hmm. Oh yeah, he does. He does. You can definitely see it. It's a labor of love. You can definitely tell it's a labor of love.
Yeah, and I actually tried to convince my mom, who's so spoiled, on like this like amazing show called Face Off. Like it's basically a reality competition show of all these special effects makeup artists.
I've
Who is
seen that. Was it on
yes,
Sci-Fi? Was it on
yeah,
Sci-Fi?
sci-fi. Yes, it was on sci-fi, and I
Yes.
got to meet Glenn Hetrick.
Wow.
Hmm.
Wow. You see, I just because I'm a huge fan of prosthetics, especially I think that's one of the big reasons why I love the 80s. So shows like that and just
Yeah.
getting to dive in the behind the scenes. Like if I had the money, I would join was Tom Savini's school. Like I
Yeah.
like just to be there and just soak it up, for the
Oh
semester.
yeah. And what was so great about that show for me is that it really taught helped me get through art class at college, and I
Hmm.
managed to like really learn how to like get better with my artwork. And what was so amazing about it is that when I look at Guillermo del Toro's creature design, his is a lot more detailed, and I try to get my mom to just appreciate like look at the stuff that they're doing. I know you love Face Off, but this is where they're learning from. You have to listen to all the people who have made all these amazing creature designs, especially Doug Jones, amazing creature actor. And I discovered him through Pan's Labyrinth, not through Hocus Pocus. Even though I love Hocus Pocus, I knew him instantly from the fawn from Pan's Labyrinth.
Yeah, yeah,
I love to meet Doug Jones because it's like he's got to be so amazing and very friendly to meet. And I wanted to tell him I loved you in Pan's Labyrinth. Everybody would kind of remember him from like Hocus Pocus, but I remembered him as the fawn with the hands and the with the horns. And when he was the pale man, I was terrified. And also he was amazing as Hellboy's best friend, who's also the creature.
yes,
I forget
yes.
his name, but then like when he plays the fish man in like a Shape of Water, it was so detailed that when he heals someone, you see the glow all over his body. It's like, tell me that is not CGI.
No, but it's done well. It's done well.
Yeah,
Jupiter
and
says he also played the Pale Man, and then Mika says, "Have you watched Del Toro's new Netflix show?"
I've been meaning to watch that, Mika. Okay, I saved it. Whenever I see notifications on Netflix and I see something that's good, I add it as reminder and I add it in to my list instantly, so I can look at my list and I'm like, here it is. I have it. Time to watch it.
Oh yes, oh yes. I haven't checked it out yet. But it's definitely on my list. I've got a lot of a lot of backlogs on my list. I'm still in the middle of what's that? The Midnight Club.
Oh
Still in the
yeah,
middle of watching that.
I saw some people like talking about the Midnight Club. Is it a little like Stranger Things a little bit?
Uh I really didn't get the feeling of Stranger Things. I got the feeling of it's more like the what's that show? Well, like Are You Afraid of the Dark? Like when they're in the Midnight
Yes.
Society, and then
Oh
mixed
yes.
with there's
Goosebumps.
well, no, there's this show about like sick kids. I forget the name, but it's similar to that. Like it's a very emotional show. Like if you've seen Mike Flanagan's, previous work, like he hits a lot of very emotional beats,
Oh
so
yeah, I've seen his work on The Haunting of Hill House. I really think it was one of the most emotionally beautifully done shows
thank
I've ever
you.
seen.
Thank
Like,
you.
and he did Doctor Sleep so well. I don't get why like Doctor Sleep like gets hate, but it really did the sequel to The Shining justice by still like paying tribute to what the original looked like, and
Yeah.
I enjoyed it. Okay, I enjoyed it. And what I really liked about the ending to Doctor Sleep was that even though like the all of the place itself was built on a Native American burial ground, like it was a metaphor for the horrors of history.
Yes.
And what I thought was very symbolic about the end is that they left it abandoned, but it deserves to be like burnt down and as a way to cleanse not only the horrible history, but they kind of freed the spirits that are trapped in there.
Yes. Yes.
And I kind of like that, and I kind of like that teared up a little bit, where Abba basically like tries to help all the other spirits that were gotten out of the hotel, and she helps them move on. You know?
Yeah. Yeah. I still have to check out Doctor Sleep. Like it's on my list. It's on the HBO Max, but I'm excited, I've heard some great things. Like I did hear the hate, but lately, like in the horror community, like people really get excited for Doctor Sleep. You know,
I
definitely gotta check
actually
it out.
liked it. And like I really thought it was a beautifully done continuation to The Shining, but I wouldn't think of this as a sequel. It's really kind of like a closure. You give the story of The Shining closure because it's really about Danny, how
Yeah,
he had to put up with an abusive parent, and he tries to kind of at least get away from the cycle. He didn't want to end up exactly like his father, because what I really thought was so poetic about it is that when he goes back to the hotel, he sees his father, but he's in the same exact place where Mr. Grady and the bartender are.
yes, yeah,
And he basically became part of the hotel. But Danny is different from Jack. He knows his place in the world. He doesn't want to end up like his father. And so he basically severs the cycle. Because even though he
hmm.
sacrifices himself to like burn down the hotel, he's not in pain. He's not trapped like his father. He's out.
Now speaking of hotels and psychological thrillers, like
Yeah.
have you ever seen the movie 1408?
I remembered hearing about it, but I never got around to seeing it.
Oh no, that's one that you definitely got to check out. That's a psychological thriller, based off the short story by Stephen King. Is definitely worth your time. It's got a lot of character growth in that one. Like it's one that I think is super underrated. Like when people talk about like Stephen King adaptions, because some of them are great and some of them aren't so great. But I feel like 1408 is definitely like top tier, definitely
I
top tier.
remembered I remembered the Green Mile also was a Stephen King story.
Uh huh.
And that was actually a very emotional movie. And it wasn't even a horror story.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. The
Yeah.
Green Mile was definitely one of those ones. Like he does get on to some emotional beats, in some of his stories.
Hmm. And I like it when horror tends to do the emotional beats, because I just really think that it's necessary to kind of like procreate that, because it's not all about the the whole about surprise, or hey, it's all like have some fun, or all the all that kind of
The
stuff. But
jump
it's
scares.
like it's like if it's only about jump scares, it's not about that. It really is about digging deeper into that. I've been so far down like the horror movie rabbit hole that I've discovered something new about it. You know? Sometimes I just kind of feel like I go back to like looking at Interview with the Vampire. And no joke, I preferred the new one because it was like, as somebody who's read the books, I discovered that the books themselves were very queer coded, that the movie never even touched upon Louis and Lestat's relationship.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I was just kind of like, wow, they never even talk about it. But the show does. They were unapologetically LGBT, and
Yeah.
I was like, thank you. They finally done it. And I was somebody who loves that ship. It's one of my favorite ships ever.
Yeah, it's but I think it's also the time, like when the first one came out, like the time we were in, and you know, uh
The
I guess
90s.
the 90s, like certain people weren't ready or comfortable with putting certain things on the screen. But now it's like every people are more accepting, and you're starting to see more other angles and other stories getting told, which need to be told, more
Oh, yeah.
perspectives, which is only going to grow the genre. Like we gotta, like we're waiting to see the big blockbuster, horror movie that has like openly queer characters in it, and it's like it's coming eventually. It's coming.
Oh, yeah, I know it is. But Interview with the Vampire is a start.
Yeah.
Is definitely a start, because I just know that my boys, my wonderful boys, I just love what they picked with Sam Reed as Lestat, because
Oh yeah.
Lestat's my favorite character, favorite vampire character. Because when I opened up interview, actually, the vampire Lestat, I felt so seduced by him that I just kind of felt like, oh God, Tom Cruise failed this character. And I needed to see somebody who actually fits that role. And along came Sam Reed. At first, when I saw his face, I was like, this guy? But then when I saw the show, I was like, this man, he's got my soul.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. That's the important thing. That's the added element of vampire lore, that alluring, that seductive, because you can't just throw anybody up there. I mean, a lot of times they do, but it's there's something about the seduction of a vampire, whether it be a man or a woman, there's something that's got to be a little bit, they got to add that little bit of a flavor in there. And have you seen the BBC Dracula? It's on Netflix.
I saw it. I actually came across it, but I might want to like give that a chance because
It's
like,
amazing.
is it
It's
closer to the book?
I would say I would say no, like they take a lot of liberties. No, it's not. I wouldn't say it's necessarily closer to the book, but it's very entertaining. It's
Well,
very
I
entertaining.
don't mind seeing another Dracula because it's like there's always a Dracula every single decade,
Yeah.
and they're always gonna like take liberties to the story because Dracula is like the horror community's Christmas Carol when you really think about it.
Yes.
Because
Yes.
like a Christmas Carol, it's always going to be adapted for decades and decades until you kind of like feel like, oh, I know the story, I know what's going to happen. But yeah, I'll give a shot with the BBC Dracula and see what I think. I
Oh yeah.
mean, I loved Gary Oldman's version. I love Bela Lugosi. I love Richard Roxburgh. Richard Roxburgh was pretty freaking hammy when you think about it. Like,
Well, yeah. Sometimes they gotta turn it up just a little bit. Just a little.
I was looking at how like Richard Roxburgh at the time I used to think he's sexy, but now looking back at it, it's like, oh my god, this is so laughable when I look at his face. And the fact that Hugh Jackman is in it and he plays Van Helsing, it's almost kind of like, why does it feel like they want to kiss each other?
Exactly, exactly. But it's different people, they take depending on who's behind the camera, they take different make different, take different liberties with the characters,
Oh yeah, and funny you should mention the movie Van Helsing was actually directed by Steven Sommers, the same guy who did the Mummies.
Yes, yes, which I really enjoyed well, I think I enjoyed the first two Mummies, this the
Yes.
after that it was all right, it was they were popcorn movies, but the first two were awesome, which spawned my support of Brendan Fraser, like I'm glad he's getting
Yes.
back out there, doing his thing,
Mm.
you
I'm
know.
so glad Brendan Fraser is finally welcomed back thanks to Darren Aronofsky.
Yes, yes,
Yes,
yes.
say what you will about Darren Aronofsky and his many times he makes depressing ass movies, but thank you for bringing back Brendan Fraser to the public, you goddamn hero.
Yes, yes, yes.
Yes.
He deserves it. He deserves it. Now, my next question for you would be, what is one horror film that you wish you could see again for the first time?
Well, I would love to see The Ring
Mm,
because I remembered when I went to see it's the American remake of The Ring. When it came out in 2002, I think I was 8 years old when that film came out. That film scared me so much that I went to the bathroom multiple times because I was afraid of the little girl, Samara.
wow.
And I missed a whole bunch of the movie because of it. But I would love to see The Ring again on the big screen to just feel that effect of seeing Samara coming out of the TV. Now I know that it's basically a remake of the Japanese movie Ringu, or
Yes.
just simply Ring. You can't say the U because the U is silent. That's how the Japanese do it. Okay? But I just would have loved to see it just again for once on the big screen. And that would have been such an amazing experience because I went to see The Shining on the big screen. That was when I used to have my ex boyfriend with me. But it was so effective to watch on the big screen. But The Ring, I definitely want to see because that would make up for the many times I missed a majority of the film as a kid.
Oh yeah, there are definitely like some movies and films that you want to experience or that you wish you could have experienced on the big screen. You know, like even I mean now if you have the money, you can go in these theaters and rent out a theater for however much. Like I know when the pandemic was first popping off, a lot of these theaters would let you rent out the whole room for like 100, 200 bucks or whatnot and play
Wow,
your
that's
own movie.
amazing. That's so cool. Funny you should mention, when I went to go to the Rocky Horror Picture Show the first time, it was during double feature night. They always
Hmm.
annually, like at my hometown. I live in Syracuse right now, and we would always go to Jamesville, which is a neighborhood here in Central New York, and every Halloween we would always have double feature night every for the Rocky Horror Picture Show as part of a tradition. And the first time
Hmm.
I went there, they were showing Bela Lugosi's Dracula, and I really loved it. And it was actually my first time I got to watch it all the way through on the big screen because when I first watched it as a kid, I fell asleep because I forgot everything because there was no music. I found myself getting sleepy and because I just wasn't scared until I just woke up and the movie was over. But I needed to kind of like really see it for real on the big screen. And it was very effective, but for some reason the audience laughed at shots of Bela Lugosi's face because they obviously might have gotten Ed Wood in their mind, and also it looked kind of cheesy for them at the time, which of course it is cheesy, but
Yeah.
I watched his performance as if I was under his spell too. But you want to know something? Did you know Bela Lugosi was actually the inspiration for Chernabog on Disney's Fantasia?
No, I did not know that. Wow, and it makes so much sense. It definitely
Yeah,
makes so much sense.
yeah, and what was so interesting about it is that if you ever think about it, Bela Lugosi happens to be Hungarian, and Chernabog actually was a god of death in Slavic folklore.
Holy crap.
And it's even deeper because, like, in the beginning of before they show that scene, they say, "Oh, it's the Walpurgis. Bald Mountain is the gathering on Walpurgisnacht, where Satan and his followers gather to worship evil." They said it was Satan, but they tried to like say, "Oh, this is Chernabog." But ironically, Satan was an angel, and Chernabog looked exactly what he's depicted in Slavic folklore. But they confuse him for the devil.
Wow. Wow. And that's the thing with all these different cultures and things like that. Like it's easy to get, things mixed up. It's very, very especially over time. Like, different people who are telling the stories, omit certain things out and then you get something put on the screen that's not necessarily like 100% accurate, but just like a more of like a dedication,
Oh
to it.
yeah, and I would love to see movies from all different cultures where they explore mythologies of cultures. Like
Yes.
what I recently went to see was I went to see like The Green Knight, which was an Arthurian legend movie, and most are movies about King Arthur, like they don't do it as close to the feeling of the legends. Like
Yeah.
Merlin was close. Merlin was the closest you could get to an Arthurian legend. With Sam Neill, it felt like you were listening to a legend. Like stuff like Quest for Camelot and Curse and all those types of things, it feels too action packed for me. Like,
Hmm.
but when I saw The Green Knight, my friend Jamie, who happens to be Native American and Japanese, like she had a friend who worked on that movie, and I
Wow.
went to see it myself, and I was blown away by the direction of this film, that it felt almost like I was listening just watching an Arthurian legend happen before my eyes. We need more movies about legends that feel like a legend. Not
Yes.
everything has to be like an action packed Tom Cruise movie or a Marvel movie or something that's like blockbuster related. But yes, blockbusters okay, but we need some more legends from cultures we never heard about. And that would be amazing, you know? I would kill to see like movies about Japanese legends or Chinese legends or Indian legends or I don't know, like obscure legends that nobody's ever heard about. And I'd kill to watch that.
Oh yeah, that's the beautiful thing about like going overseas and checking out like the foreign horror films and stuff like that, because you're getting not only different perspectives but different tales, different folk tales, and legends and just mythologies, and how people's minds, like what scares them over there.
Yeah, and you know something, that the South Korean horror movie A Tale of Two Sisters, that was based on an old Korean folktale called Jangra Hongryeo, and it was about two sisters who were relentlessly abused by their stepmother, which led them into getting killed, and then they come back as ghosts to seek justice and retribution.
Yes, yes, yes. Which is it was an amazing, like, A Tale of Two Sisters. If you guys have not checked that out yet, I think you should definitely check it out. It's definitely one that I recommend. I highly
Mm-hmm.
recommend to everyone. My next question would be, and I asked this question to everybody. Does horror do anything for you, like as far as your mental health? Does it like relieve any stress, or does it put you in a certain mindset, or like what does it do for you, if anything?
I think for me, horror, in a way, I think it really challenges like my own fears. I have
Mm,
to be in a certain mood to kind of like watch a horror movie because there's a lot of things that I get very stressed out about, whether it's basically just kind of like having to put up with negativity on the internet or having to like
yes,
just go to a job or dealing with parents arguing. But my parents are fine. They're my best friends, but there's a lot of stress that happens for me. So when I see comfort in horror movies, it's almost kind of like it's like a teacher to me because it almost kind of lets you know that yes, there's going to be bad things in the world. There's going to be horrible shit. But keep in mind that be thankful it's not happening to you. But then sometimes horror can be a bit of a comfort for me, especially when you have characters that you like. You
yes,
know,
yes,
if you watch Stranger Things or The Addams Family or Interview with the Vampire or simply just movies that have characters that I like and you get invested into their character arc, they almost become almost like they're your friends.
yes, yes, totally. Like me watching Stranger Things, like especially this last season, I found myself boo-hooing, because I'm like, oh man, like I don't want to put any spoilers out there for the folks who haven't seen, the latest season yet, but it was you really don't know like how attached you grow to these characters, and especially it's like a treat when it's in the horror genre, because it's not always like promoted that way. So when you watch something like Stranger Things or The Haunting of Hill House, where all the emotional beats that they took with that, and I'm just like, am I crying from a ghost right now? Is a ghost getting me emotional? Is it like, what's going on
Yeah,
right now?
and I feel that way every time I watch not only just Stranger Things even um or even just like Haunting of Hill House. I cry during Interview the Vampire. I cry at the end of like Doctor Sleep with The Shining because I care so much about Danny Torrance. I care for the characters in It, Stephen King's
Yes.
It. Like it's like those are characters that you care about. And sometimes I'm gonna say it, but Hocus Pocus felt a little bit like there was a charm to it.
Oh yeah, Hocus Pocus was definitely up there, up there. Haunting of Hill House was great. Yes, it was great. And yes, it's they're like your friends. You get so attached. Yes, Jupiter. I agree. I agree.
Hmm.
It's definitely it's definitely when they hit those emotional chords, and it not only makes you want to watch more, but it creates like you kind of want to step into their world, and you kind of like want to ask like, okay, what the fuck is going on over here? Like it's so, because there's so many things going on, and especially like depending on the show. I don't know if you've seen Yellow Jackets on
Yes. Oh my
Showtime.
God. Mom and I are watching Yellow Jackets right now. It's so great. And I'm
Okay, I don't want to spoil. I don't want to spoil it
don't
if you haven't
spoil
finished the.
anything.
Yeah.
Don't. Like I actually and also I was watching Let the Right One In. Both the Swedish movies great, but this is like great because it's like I'm getting invested with the characters and I'm like I care
Yes.
about them. I
Yes.
care about them so much.
Yes. It's important. It's important because sometimes like I don't know what it's like for some people, but for me, like if I'm not, at least a little empathetic with the characters, I'm less likely to do a rewatch, and sometimes like I find like the best stories for me are very character driven stories, that hold my
Mhm.
attention, and that cause me to do like a rewatch, and especially it's just exciting because of the era that we are in now, because we're just getting so much of that in television, which leads me to my next question. Like what are some of your favorite horror television shows, and it could be the past or it could be, presently.
Well, I just really like Interview with the Vampire. I love Stranger Things. I love Let the Right One In. And I really like The Addams Family. I do like watching the Addams Family show. That they're great,
Yes.
honestly. And like I mean those are my personal favorite shows because it's almost kind of like I get invested in the story. And I'm gonna say this. I do like horror related anime. Okay?
Oh yes, yes.
Yes.
We
Like
were
I
talking
think
about
I
Perfect Blue.
yes. Oh my god. I love watching horror related anime, especially when I was watching like Death Note or Black Butler or Hellsing Ultimate or simply Perfect Blue or just I'm a huge anime fan that I like specific kinds of anime that
Yes.
really are character driven. I mean, Ghost in the Shell was character driven.
Yes.
Everything by Hayao Miyazaki was character driven. Mamoru Hosoda and Masaki Yuasa are very character driven. I mean, the Devilman Crybaby show that was character driven as hell, and that was actually the inspiration for Evangelion. And Evangelion is definitely a horror show. It disguises itself as a mecha anime, kind of like Transformers, but it's not. It's psychological.
Yes, yes, yeah. But I love when they do twists and turns like that.
Oh man.
Mika says Yellow Jackets is one of my favorite shows. Yes, yes.
Hey
It's
Mika, if you really want to see a really good psychological anime, I recommend Evangelion. And I would recommend Ghost in the Shell, the first two movies. Just saying, Mika.
Ghost in the Shell. All right, all right. Soothing Smooth says horror anime. I loved Monster. It's more like a psychological thriller. I don't know if you checked that one out, which
I'm
I've
gonna
got to check that out.
I gotta check it out too. Drawing down these anime titles, loving it. Yeah. And also I'm gonna like give a couple recommendations. Like I'm also would like you to see like Belle by Mamoru Hosoda, and it's basically like the internet retelling of Beauty and the Beast, except it's much more emotionally impactful than you think,
Wow.
because like it's about like this girl named Suzu who joins like this little internet landscape called You, and she gains her confidence to sing. And then she meets like a guy called the Dragon, who's essentially the Beast. And it's like a Beauty and the Beast story, but it's almost like, oh my god, it's so emotionally driven. Then with Masaki Uasa, you get Devilman Crybaby, but there's a great movie called The Night is Short, Walk On Girl. It's so funny. The animation is great. It's like a romantic comedy, but the animation is so unique and out there. And for Satoshi Kon's movies like Perfect Blue, Millennium Actress, Tokyo Godfathers, and Paprika, they're all great. And anything by Hayao Miyazaki, whether it's Spirited Away, Howl's Moving Castle, Ponyo, My Neighbor Totoro, and all of those movies are so remarkably beautiful, and I love that. So when I find certain specific anime stories, I
Hmm.
get into the story. I don't watch anime to see lots of things blowing up or big fights. I don't
Yes.
watch that. I watch it for storytelling.
Yes, yes. And I'm not like, I wouldn't say like I'm a big into anime. Like my fiance, she's got me into certain things. She actually got me to watch Death Note, which I
Yes.
ended up loving, which I just saw today that The Simpsons is doing a parody
Oh
of
my
Death
god.
Note for the for the Treehouse of Horror. So I'm like, I wonder how
All I
that's gonna
keep
go.
thinking in Death Note is that one potato chip scene. It's like, I'll take a potato chip and eat it. Dun 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 dun.
Yeah, everything is so dramatic. Everything is so dramatic in
I
anime,
know.
but it's great though. It's great though. It
I
adds it adds to the
first
drama.
heard of Death Note was through when I was on Second Life. Everybody was using that potato chip scene, and I kept thinking, what is this show? What is it from? And it was after I finished Black Butler, and there was Black Butler parody Death Note when Grell actually gets out of Death Note to write the name of the nun who Sebastian was screwing in the church.
Yeah, it's the way they just anime, they take it all the way around the world. It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, and
Um
it's a beautiful genre too. I mean, yes, it has its weird parts here and there, but it broke the boundaries in animation. And I really think it deserves to be appreciated as such.
Oh yes, most definitely. It definitely deserves its fandom, which it has, a huge fandom, and more people are, starting to check it out, and I'm starting to see it being more acceptable, or accepted in the mainstream, to be like, oh, you love anime. Like Soothing Smooth, she says, How's Moving Castle, and then Jupiter says she can't wait to check out the parody. It's a lot of beautiful, it's so many different things that they can do in that medium. uh I feel like sometimes they struggle when they translate it to like live action,
Yeah,
sometimes.
oh my god. I can't stand it when they translate it to live action because it just doesn't work. I
Yeah.
went to see the Ghost in the Shell live action remake with Scarlett Johansson, and the problem I had with that was that I watched both the movie and its sequel. It just doesn't feel like the anime.
No,
And in
no.
a way they screwed up Motoko's character for me. I mean, I know they tried to show like certain Easter eggs, but it's meant to be animated. There's some
Yeah.
shows that really are meant to be animated and they need to be treated as such. And even if you want to try to like translate that to live action, it's not going to work. Look at what they did to Death Note, or God forbid, Cowboy Bebop. Watch the original animated, okay? It's
Oh yeah.
much more impactful.
Oh yes. Now my next question would be, do you have a favorite horror villain?
I know who it is. Freddy Krueger.
Freddy Krueger. Why is Freddy Krueger your favorite?
I love how ridiculously campy he is while he is ruthless as hell.
Yeah, they definitely like turned his character up like over the movies. Like they definitely, turned
I
his.
love it. I just love it so much because it's almost kind of like when I saw like the final film, I remember seeing him in like number 3. When he gets crazy with his kills, it's almost kind of like he's so freaking brilliant.
Oh
Like
yeah.
it's almost kind of like his kills are so creative too. He kills them in their dreams, but then they get creative and even more creative. And I love Robert Englund. He's so amazing as Freddy. And when I saw him in Stranger Things, I geeked
Oh
out.
yeah, I flipped the hell out. Especially, because watching the season, it was kind of like they paid a lot heavy homage to, Nightmare on Elm Street and Freddy and stuff like that. I'm glad that you mentioned that character because it's one question I like asking people as well. In a battle, Freddy versus Vecna, who would you choose?
Okay, well, which battle?
If it was a battle between Freddy Krueger and Vecna from Stranger Things.
I think it will be a little impossible to do because I think it's most likely going to be Vecna because, like, Vecna, he has a much more extreme, uh, powerful presence than Freddy
Yes.
because Freddy died a mortal death and he mostly easily kills people in their dreams. But
Yes.
the problem with that is that he couldn't stand a chance against Vecna because Vecna originally was human himself. But the difference is that he has psychic powers,
Well, yeah.
whereas Freddy is a child murderer.
Uh-huh. Yeah, it definitely I just love to because some Freddie's been around for a while, so there's a lot of loyalty to that character. But just seeing Vecna, a lot of people showed him a lot of love.
Mm,
Yes, love how Freddie plays on people's fears and makes it brutal yet comical. Yes, Jupiter. Then
exactly.
Mika says Freddy is a good villain. What was so terrifying about Elm Street is the attack in the sleep. How horrifying that you can't do the one thing we need.
Yeah,
Exactly.
exactly. And that's what makes Freddy so original, even more original than Michael Myers and Jason.
Yeah, yeah. Definitely did they made it so like it's inevitable. It's inevitable thing to get wrapped up in him. Mika says Robert Englund in Stranger Things was awesome. There was also a reference to Silence of the Lambs in that
Yeah,
scene.
exactly. I saw the Silence of the Lambs like reference right through that. And I love Silence of the Lambs, but I don't think it deserves to be hated because of like Buffalo Bill because people need to realize that Buffalo Bill was actually based off a real serial killer named Ed Gein. So
Yeah.
was so was Norman Bates, also based on Ed Gein, and so was Leatherface, also based on Ed Gein. I mean,
Yes.
they could at least try to give Silence of the Lamb at least a chance, and also keep in mind, like Buffalo Bill is not a transvestite. He's not transgender. He was just psychotic, and he just killed people. He never is transgender. Okay, if you want actual real representation about trans people, look at other characters. Okay, also like Frankenfurter's the closest you could get. Even though he's kind of the antagonist, but he's sympathetic, you
Well,
know?
yeah, true, true.
Yeah, okay. I know that it's not a good fit, but Frankenfurter's like such a great character for me because it's like he's a defiance against conservative society.
I will agree with that. I will definitely agree with that. He and loud about it as well. Very loud. I was actually shocked, like watching the movie. Like it was great, but some of the things that were in there, I'm like, oh, they were showing this, back then, and just the
1975.
yeah, just some of the lyrics to the songs. I was like, oh, this is they were going in. They were going in.
Oh yeah, and also what I really loved about the film itself is that it was a really big commentary on how LGBT people feel during conservative society at the time. Because for Brad and Janet, really, they're supposed to be a metaphor for the audience on how they had to like raise themselves in a heteronormative society. So when they actually kind of go into Frankenfurter's world, it feels a little like shocking for them at the time, but then they actually had to like go along with this, but then at the same time they decide to explore what it's like. And for example, the scene when Frankenfurter has sex with both
Yeah.
Janet and Brad,
Yeah.
if you look real closely at the design of the scene, Janet's a lot more assertive when Frankie has sex with her.
True.
And Brad, on the other hand, is much more vulnerable when he's going down on him. Because if you ever think about it, pink originally was a boy color and blue was a girl color.
Yeah. Yeah.
And in a way, it was almost kind of like the both of them actually wanted to explore their sexuality, and they weren't really 100% straight to begin with.
Well, you know what? I didn't even think about it like that, but now that you put it that way, I'm like, yeah, like thinking about that scene, it makes sense. It makes sense.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly. And also, what was kind of a little bit tragic about the ending is that when Riff Raff supposedly kills Frankenfurter, the director Richard O'Brien, he happened to be gay himself, and he actually poetically was supposed to show that he was trying to put his gay self down in order to fit into heteronormative society at the time, in order to fit in, which is truly kind of sad to think about it. And as for Brad and Janet, they have to live with the experience, and they kind of feel like they've lost a mentor. Like, even though he's technically an antagonist, he's not really. He's supposed to be like this wild, free spirit that cannot be tamed. And now that he's gone, or not really gone, I like to think put down in order to fit into a perfectly normal, non-queer, non-weird society, it just feels like it's a little empty. It's
yeah,
not as colorful, because the world needs to have a little color, a little bit more creativeness, a little bit more rainbow, almost like all the colors of the rainbow. Like, we can go by life being like little Brad and Janet's, but deep down in spirit, we are all Frankenfurter.
yeah. No, I agree. I agree. Like you have to let like your, as they say, like your let your freak flag, fly. You gotta just, because society will tell you, oh, be like this, be like that, you gotta walk like this, talk like this, and all that. But the real freedom is just in being yourself, and having the space to do that.
Yeah, and when I was growing up, I never really liked dressing up in pink clothes. I mostly had to like dress up in rainbow related clothes. I
Hmm.
want to welcome all the colors of the rainbow, because it's like a lot of my closet is filled with dresses from my grandmother, who passed away unfortunately like years ago. She had a really amazing sense of style on my mother's side, and she had colorful dresses that felt very bohemian, something straight out of the 70s or the 80s. Like, they were very warm and colorful, and they're long and flowy. They really complement my figure. And then I have a whole collection of t-shirts with geek related references. I let my freak flag fly when I dress up the way I want to dress up, and when I want to
Yes.
paint what I paint. I want to make a video what I want to do, and I want to cook what I want to cook. I truly be myself, and I don't want to conform to anything.
Yes, yes, you have to, especially nowadays. It's important to be yourself, and to not let anyone make you feel like you can't, or society make you feel like you can't, or family make you feel like you can't. Like, you gotta, because at the end of the day, you gotta live with yourself. You gotta take yourself everywhere you're going.
Exactly. And like, what was kind of interesting about it is that I happen to be born with Asperger's, and I'm Jewish, and I was targeted because I was Jewish and I had Asperger's, but it took me a while to truly be proud of myself for what I am, for who I am, that I just decided to stop giving a shit what people think. Like, I was born with Asperger's. I am proud to be Jewish.
Yes.
And my weight, it doesn't define me as a person. And honestly, my weight fluctuates. It's like water. Like, even if I'm thin or fat, it doesn't matter. It's up here and in here that matters. Am I
Yes.
a good person? That's what it really should be about.
And you're an amazing person, Jordan. Just from this conversation with talking to you, like you're so full of life and so full of just commentary for your passion of life. You know, it comes through. Like I can just tell by this conversation, like you're a person who leads a very rich life, you know, and it starts with, you know, with what's inside, you know, and it's radiating out. Like I can see it right now, you know,
Thank
like
you.
people are seeing it, you know. Mika was saying, you know, you're talking that truth, you know. Jupiter said you're amazing, Jordan, you know, really cool wealth of knowledge, you know.
Thank you.
Mika says, yes, Jordan, proud of you, of who you are. Damn right.
Yeah,
You
and
know?
that's why whenever I go to the Rocky Horror Picture Show, I feel safe there because I really feel like I'm surrounded by all kinds of people. And I
Yes.
really love the horror movie community because it's so diverse. It's so welcoming and very accepting that I've been in other fandoms before. Sometimes they can get very toxic. I mean,
Yes.
I went to LeakyCon. I did a whole documentary about LeakyCon. It's the Harry Potter fandom is a great community, but holy crap, it can get very negative sometimes. And I actually filmed around and I tried to make it all about the community, but then I met like the creator of that event. I was
Yeah.
telling her, "Hey, I was actually making a documentary about your convention," and she just looked at me "Hmm." Like she didn't care, like she didn't know I existed, and I was like, "Really?" And that was when I just kind of felt like, you know what? They're too negative, and I just needed to kind of branch out. I wanted to
Yes.
like go to like communities or conventions that are more like, oh, we welcome all things,
Yes.
and
Yes.
but all things.
And that's the important thing about horror, you know, like you're going to get a mixture, you know. Everybody loves the same thing, you know, well, the same genre, you know. Like we may love, you know, different subgenres and, you know, different movies and different characters and stuff like that, but everybody is pretty much like accepting, you know. Well, at least that I've come across, anyway. Now my next question would be, you named your favorite horror villain. Do you have a favorite final girl?
I love
Or
Sydney.
Sydney is, if she's a favorite, she's a favorite, especially I think they're paying her and bringing her back for number 6. I don't know in what capacity, but you know, they're paying her. She's coming back in number 6.
I
um
love Sydney Prescott to me because I really just love that she basically stands up to Ghostface.
yes.
And I think the fact that she lost her mother, the trauma, I don't want to like say, oh, the trauma made you stronger. No, the trauma made her afraid for her life. And it's really her friends and her intellect and how resourceful she is. Her resourcefulness made her stronger.
Yes, yes, yes. Especially, you know, in being in those situations, you know, over and over and over. And each movie, like we're seeing, you know, something different from this character, and you know, with more knowledge, with more survival skills, you know, than before, with more paranoia as well. But you know, it made for some fun times. Made for some fun times.
Yeah, definitely.
Now
And
my what were you gonna say? I'm sorry.
well, I just kind of like feel like I love horror and it's a part of my life.
Yes, yes. It's a part of all our lives. That's why we're here. That's why we're talking about it. You know, we're very passionate about it. Which comes to my next question for you. We're getting into the era of like the metaverse and stuff like that, and virtual reality. And you know, there's a space for horror in there. And you
Uh,
know, pretty soon we're just going to be able to walk into each other's rooms and just, you know, hang out. So if I were to put the glass, because I'm sure you're going to have plenty of worlds, but if I were to put on the glasses, the Oculus, and I'm stepping into Jordan's world, her horror world. What would your horror world look like?
I think my horror world would look like a combination of wizards, witches, and vampires living amongst each other and actually simply getting along, and they see their combination of humans and they try to at least come out of their world of secrecy and not be afraid of other humans and not be afraid of each other. And they actually try to see, hey, we're not so different after all.
Oh, that's sweet. That is the sweetest answer that I've gotten from that question. I love that. I love that answer. I love that answer.
Yeah, because I was actually, my friend Anthony and I were actually like talking about like Harry Potter and Anne Rice, and we were imagining what if the characters from Anne Rice's Vampire Chronicles met with the kids from Stranger Things and the Harry Potter characters, and me and Anthony are in it as our Harry Potter esque characters, and we meet characters from The Witch, characters from Hocus Pocus, and we meet characters from Evangelion and characters from Hell of a Boss and Has Been Hotel. And we meet Brad and Janet for a while. And you actually get to know the characters and how they interact with each other. They don't feel threatened. But I just like the interaction. And I just kind of feel like, yeah, that's a world I'd rather live in.
Oh yeah, that's I couldn't agree more. I love it. I love it. I would love to see that. I can't wait, I can't wait until we get there to where I can step into your world and actually see that, come to fruition, you know.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
Mika says, I love the blending of worlds and all the characters meeting up. It reminded me of what's that? Who Framed Roger Rabbit, where
Yes,
and
that's oh
I was
yes.
just like, yo, this had to be back then because nowadays everybody wants their money. And we're not gonna get to see Bugs and Mickey,
Yeah,
sharing
exactly.
the
And Who
screen.
Framed Roger Rabbit was my childhood movie. And it was such a great freaking movie when all the characters interacted
Yes.
and I laughed, I got scared, I felt heartfelt, and I loved how how live action blended so well with animation. I could quote that movie down to a T. And I don't care what everybody says about like Ready Player One. Who Framed Roger Rabbit did it first?
Yes, yes. Ready. I mean, I enjoyed Ready Player One, but Who Framed Roger Rabbit was just that movie for me. It's definitely stood the test of time, and it's one of those ones where like I have a nephew now, he's a little too young to watch it at this point, but when he gets up there, like that's definitely going to be one of the movies that I bring over and watch it with him.
I know. And can we just appreciate Bob Hoskins and Christopher Lloyd and Amy oh, what was the actress who played Jessica Rabbit? Like, oh my god, it was Catherine. Oh god,
Catherine.
let me look her up. Hang on. Who
Yeah.
framed Roger Rabbit? Here we go. Yes, Kathleen Turner. And the sing
Kathleen Turner, yes,
yeah,
yes,
and the singing voice was Amy Irving.
yes, yes, yes. It was just so many talents, and then of course they tried to do it again with Cool World. Jupiter said they tried in Cool
Yeah,
World.
I'm gonna say it, but Cool World was actually my first introduction to hentai. Like
Oh,
just sex and animation. And then, no joke, I know Hollywood was kind of hot, but no offense, Jessica Rabbit was hotter.
Jessica Rabbit was smoking,
I
okay? She was
know.
smoking, it is what it it is what it is.
I want to actually sing like "Why Don't You Do Right." Like I just want to like I have the right singing voice. Like if you ever like check out my YouTube channel with any of my singing like covers, I really like practice my singing voice as much as I could. And
Yeah.
recently I actually planned out a couple like singing like covers, like karaoke covers that I really want to do. One of them being songs from I think Evangelion, some of them from Jesus Christ Superstar, others I think from Disney, and
Yes.
some from Pink Floyd and anime. And I like want to like try that, and I want to include Why Don't You Do Right, because it's like it's a smoking hot song.
Yes, it is. Yes, and I could totally see you performing that. I could totally. So I'll be waiting. I'll be waiting for the notification. You know, I'm subscribed. If you're not subscribed to her channel, you know, she's got a lot of interesting things on there and a lot of interesting and great things planned for the future. You know,
Yeah, and
so
you know something? Next week after Halloween, I'm gonna start filming the first season of season 2 of Kitchen Witch. The first episode of season 2 of Kitchen Witch. And the
yeah.
first episode is gonna be Bavarian pretzels.
Yes, I'm sold. I'm sold. Let's go. Let's go with these Bavarian pretzels. Now, you know, we're winding down, getting to the end of the interview. I got one more question, you know, to ask you before we wrap things up. But I want to thank you, you know, thus far for, you know, rocking with me and answering all my questions and just being so like enthusiastic and just so full of life and knowledge, you know, as far as not just horror, but you know, nerddom and just film in general. Like
Mhm.
you're one of the people. You and Terrence, you guys are just like wealths of knowledge for
Thank
me.
you.
Yes, yes, yes. Now my last question would be, if you could spend the day in the life of your favorite or not, maybe not your favorite, but if you could spend the day in the life of a horror character, whether it be a spirit, a creature, you know, a person, you know, Leviathan, you know, like anything, like what would you spend the day in the life as?
I want to spend the day in the life of any of the Anne Rice vampire characters. I
Yeah.
feel like I could fit in that world for me because I'm very self-reflective. Sometimes I can get a little morose sometimes, but really I have such a wealth of knowledge that I could easily fit into that world.
Yes, yes. I'm totally sold. I'm totally sold. I would love to see you in the Anne Rice universe, you know, especially because I'm hearing a lot of great things about, you know, the new Interview with the Vampire. So, you know, who knows, you know, with they may do, you know, a spin-off or something like that. And, you know, who knows?
Yeah,
Who knows?
I just like to. I think what would be kind of interesting for me as an Anne Rice vampire character is like I already have my Harry Potter universe. I've known enough about it, but I feel like Anne Rice for me, I would fit into that world too because it's almost gonna feel like I'm very different, and sometimes I'm very like I'd like to know more knowledge, and maybe I could like exist in a different time period,
Yes.
or or I kind of feel like I'm too damn nice amongst all the other vampires, because a lot of the other vampires are very more like mature and very like serious sometimes, except Lestat because he does it for the lulz, right?
Yes, the
Lestat,
lulls.
the lulz, come on, look, he was dancing with Claudia's, the corpse of Claudia's mother, like that's for the lulz. And like, come on, and he played like a whole concert to wake up an ancient vampire. He'll do anything. And I'm just like, yes, I'm kind of like a weird kind of vampire, but I'm very friendly.
Yes, I would be sold. I would be sold. I can't wait. I can't wait. So we got to get the word out to Anne Rice, you know, to well to Anne Rice's whoever's doing her her stuff, you know, we got to get the word out to get Jordan in there somewhere. You know, Mika says she loves your covers. She loves your Little Mermaid cover. You know, you did
Yeah.
an
Oh,
awesome
did you
job.
hear? I was listening to Halle Bailey's her as Ariel. She sounds really good. I
Yes.
don't understand the hate for her. It was like, and then I heard her sing Can You Feel the Love Tonight earlier, and I'm like, why wasn't she Nala in The Lion King? Like, come on. She has a great voice. Although, I would have loved to see Queen Latifah as Ursula in that one. Melissa McCarthy, I'm sorry, I just do not want. And
Well,
also, yeah, go on.
well, yeah. Like I think I agree. I would have loved to see Queen Latifah as Ursula. Like I know she was
Yes.
in the live action one, but to just see what they could have done with CG and stuff like that, like it would have been amazing.
You know, I actually watched a video of like Ursula from the original film, and they synced it to "When You're Good to Mama" from Chicago, and it's Queen Latifah.
Wow,
It
wow.
was
Oh,
like,
she. Yeah, I love Chicago. She did her thing. She
I
did her thing.
know, and it's like Chicago's one of my favorite musicals, and like I love musicals all over. I love Wicked, Hamilton, Hadestown, Chicago, Phantom of the Opera, uh, The Lion King, and Les Miserables, and there's so many musicals, even the Rodgers and Hammerstein musicals, all of them. It's like
Yes.
I live and breathe musicals that when I think about it, it's almost kind of like I love to see original musicals. Like right now, they got Hadestown, and I'm like, I must want to see this, okay? And Patrick Page as Hades, when he was Frollo, he just like went, he stole my damn soul.
Yeah, he's definitely a treasure. You know, he's definitely a treasure. Like it's
I
a
know, and he and remember when he sang "Hey Little Songbird"? His voice went so damn low that it's illegal. It was illegal for his voice to go that low. Yes, yes, Rent. Rent was great. Cats, no offense. I think the only song I liked from it was obviously Memory. But you want to know what I think Andrew Lloyd Webber's masterpiece is? Jesus Christ Superstar. Guess what? This year, I was in Jesus Christ Superstar as an ensemble member.
Oh wow.
Yes, like
Wow.
the community, my community theater was actually doing like a wonderful adaptation of Jesus Christ Superstar, and it was directed by the wonderful Mookie Van Orden, who's also on Instagram. Go and check her out, and the woman who plays Jesus, Bianca, she's also on Instagram herself. She sang the word, sang Jesus like I fell in love with her voice. It was almost kind of like she commanded the stage. I first appeared in the temple scene when we were saying, "Run up for the prices down, come on in for the best in town. Take your
Get
pick of the
it.
finest wine. Lay your debts on this bird of mine. Laying your debts, I got everything. Hurry now, it's a going fast. Borrow cash in the finest term. Hurry now while the stock still lasts. Run up Jerusalem, here it is in us and them. While our temples still survive, we at least are still alive. What you see is what you get. No one's been disappointed yet. Don't be scared, give me a try. There is nothing you can't buy.
Yes, yes. Jordan. Killing it.
Yeah,
Killing it.
and then I came back during the arrest scene as a reporter, and no joke, I was wearing a pink trench coat with a black dress and boots and sunglasses underneath, and I went, "Tell me, Christ, how you feel tonight. Do you feel that you've had the breaks? What would you say were your big mistakes?" And what that character was, that was my interpretation of the devil.
Ooh.
And the devil's never mentioned in Jesus Christ Superstar, but I created the ugliness of social media and how we want to like sensationalize everything. And then I came back for the trial. We all did such a great time, a great job that I loved it. I loved every second of it. That I want to do like community theater again. I mean, I could easily be on Broadway, but unfortunately, I'd rather just prefer community theater because Broadway's hard. Like you gotta like at least make it. It's
Yeah.
too hard.
Yeah.
Wanna know my dream like role would be for me? For me, My dream roles would be Carlotta from Phantom of the Opera, uh, Mrs. Lovett from like Sweeney Todd, and Elphaba and Glinda from Wicked,
Oh yeah, yeah, you'd kill it. You'd
and
kill it.
possibly any of the daughters, the mother, or the matchmaker from Fiddler on the Roof.
You'd kill it. You'd kill it. I'm
Thank you.
sold. I'm sold. Little
Little
Susan
Shop of
Swoop said,
Horrors is
"Little Shop of
great.
Horrors." So suddenly Seymour. That's my jam. That's
Oh
my
man.
jam.
Suddenly Seymour, he purified me. He don't need no others. He don't understand. Suddenly Seymour is here to provide me with sweet understanding. Seymour's my friend.
Woo! Thank you, Jordan, for bringing some culture to the show. Bringing some
Mhm.
culture to the show. But
I'd love to be Audrey. Okay, every time I see like a Audrey, Audrey is like such an emotionally sensitive character, but nobody will ever see Audrey as a chubby girl like myself. But I could play her easily.
no, you could definitely play Audrey. Like I would definitely, come if it was community theater, whatever you're in, because you just proved that you got it. You just proved that you got it. We love it. We love it.
Thanks.
We love
Thanks
it.
so
But
much.
but thank you for joining the show. That wraps up the interview. I'm so happy that you decided to join. And I'd love to have you on. For a future discussion. In the future, and you know
I would definitely love that. I mean, like, I really like having this discussion because, like, we could talk about practically anything. I really like appearing on other live streams because I'd like to have discussions about practically anything. Like, if I see somebody like doing like an anime podcast, like, or
yes,
an anime live stream, or just something about Broadway or like anything in particular, I'm here for it. You know what I mean?
yes. It's so interesting to just talk to people who are passionate about something, and that's the important thing. Just and having that discussion and just having that flow. And just to see how they light up, because I could see how you light up, especially like when we bring up anime or Harry Potter or musicals, and just you gave us some sound, some beautiful music. You're the first person that's given us some beautiful music on the show. So I want to thank you for that. We really appreciate that. So thank you for joining us tonight, Jordan. Thank you to everybody in the chat, for joining us. Soothing Smooth, Mika, Jupiter. Thank you guys for hanging out with us tonight. That concludes this episode. I want to make sure that everybody checks out Jordan Van Ryn. Make sure you check out her YouTube. She's got some interesting things coming up. She's got the Kitchen Witch starting up the next season, soon after Halloween, getting that together again. And also you can follow her on Instagram at Jordan_Renaissance_geek. She's just an awesome person. You see it. She's a light. She's a light in this world. So thank you for joining us tonight, Jordan.
You're
Oh,
very welcome. I was so lucky to be here. Thank you so much, Tyrone. I thank you.
no problem, no problem. All right, everybody, enjoy the rest of your night, and peace. As my fiance says, peace, love, and horror. Peace out, everybody. Peace out. We're gonna end the live. Peace out.